Okay, so
Okay.
I'm Dan here, Winter, and I'm here with Mark, who is the genius behind the equations that we're working
Yeah.
with as the confirmation of the work on conjugate causes of gravity. So, Mark, please, if you would try to describe to an uninitiated, maybe even almost a non-technical viewer, the implications of what your new equations mean in terms of a pure geometric solution to the fundamental constants, the actual pure principles, and then secondly, how that then supports the work that we've done on the fractal conjugate causes of gravity. Please, Mark.
Oh yeah, Dan. I can tell you how. What's the significance is how there was a problem, a question asked to me 20 something years ago by a friend, and it's a tough problem, and I knew how to formulate uh, Schrodinger's wave equation to solve basic quantum mechanics things for solid state. So he comes to me and he says, "Hey Mark, can we derive an equation for the mass of matter, the source of mass of matter?" I says, "Oh yeah, it's right here in Schrodinger's wave equations. The only problem is if you solve it all, that means you need these three golden ratios. You know, the electron to proton mass ratio. Uh, that has to do with those constants of all the equations.
Mm-hmm.
Schrodinger's has all the speed of light, capital G, the fine constant. All those basic constants are in those coefficients. So when my friend says, "Hey, can you solve this?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't know how to treat the electron." So we worked on it for a while. This is late 80s, early 90s, I believe. I have a document somewhere where I'm going to find it to show, because I can actually simplify it. Here's the key thing. The question is, what is the source of the mass of matter? You go to solve it, you need to get those three golden ratio, those three magic numbers. Again, I'm going to go from memory. It's the ratio of the proton mass to the electron mass. That's
Yes,
that 1836. The
that's
other
what
key
you saw.
one you need is the Planck mass divided by the electron mass.
Mm.
Well, they have the Rydberg equation. That's an experimental thing, Rydberg coefficient. That's just an empirical model for the mass of the electron. So I couldn't go anywhere with the equations. You do the simultaneous solution to the proton and electron problem using Schrodinger's wave equation, okay? When you set it up that way, it's really tough. However, if you do a ratio of it, look at some of the coefficients and simplify the problem, what you find out, that ratio that I did to get the Planck mass divided by the Planck mass is 1. So out of those three numbers, well, when you got two equations with two unknowns, is that right? Two equations, two unknowns. There's two two solutions, but you got to think about quantum entanglement. There's four. Okay, so with these two equations, two unknowns, for maybe it's because it works out to be four things you can say. One of them is this is I'll have to redo the math. One of them is when you're solving two equations, two unknowns, it's a simultaneous set of equations. So the proton has two pieces, so does the electron, but when you ratio it, you get the proton mass to electron mass. You get when you formulate the problem, you get the Planck mass to the electron mass, the Planck mass, the proton mass, and the number 1, which is the Planck mass divided by the Planck mass. That's all the solutions you can get. Whenever I formulated the problem, all I needed was to have the product of the proton mass times this radius term, radius of the proton, set that equal to the mass of the electron times the radius of the electron. I didn't know what it meant at the time. When I started working it out, the radius for the electron came out too big. I didn't know Nassim's equation,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't have the 2010, 2013 muonic hydrogen measurement. So I said to myself, way back then, I said, I can't solve this thing right now. Maybe mathematically I can. However, I don't have the data. What I'm going to do is wait until I hear someone say, hey, I got either the electron radius or the proton radius. Then I was going to solve the equations and give the three magic numbers. That was my plan.
And make the connection between the muonic hydrogen and Nassim's short shield proton briefly, if you could, as well.
The most important is Nassim's work. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he comes in using Einstein's field equations with Buckminster's Fuller's completed. He had to complete the IVM, isometric vector matrix, add torque and Coriolis with all his guys he's working with. Elizabeth Rauscher, it's that 2004 paper that he wrote with Elizabeth Rauscher on torque. When you add torque and Coriolis to Einstein's field equations, do all the math, well, besides everything else he says, out of that comes, well, that you don't need, it's all his dual torus thing, you don't need dark matter, dark energy, but specifically we were talking about Nassim's results.
Well,
it was very important to have that, and you needed the muonic measurement to back up his results. However, when I first learned of Nassim's results back in June, it took me about 2 or 3 months to realize, hey, for the mass of matter, the source of mass of matter, it had been so long that I solved the problem, I knew the only thing I needed was either the radius of the proton or the radius of the electron. And that's what Nassim says. Hey, I got the radius of the proton. All the physicists said,
that's too big.
It's too big. They said, you'd laugh you out of the class.
Yeah.
I went, because it'd been years, I forgot that I'd solved it and was just waiting. So I like, shit, look at Nassim's results. I go running on the internet. Hey, you guys, he solved for the mass of matter. Don't you know that's significant? But I didn't yet put it in the set of equations to get those three magic numbers because it's been so long I forgot. But
you said that.
Let me tell you.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm going to tell you one thing that's important. I thought, since Nassim told them the answer and they didn't say, oh, thank you, that it must be wrong. So I didn't go check right away. I went and derived his equation to make sure it was right. And it takes going through Leonard Susskind and Hawking's debate, 25-year debate over black holes. It's actually information theory. I happen to be really good at information theory because I used to design read channels for hard disk drives and burn about $100 million of Motorola and Texas Instruments money. So those are the good old days. But that information theory, Dan, is what this is about. You have to know information theory and balance. And beside the significance is that's the source of the mass of matter. Simply using Schrodinger's wave equations, you just solve for these ratios. Boom, you get it. No Higgs boson.
Well, it seems that the genius is that it proves that now we have the pure geometric for the ratio of the mass of the electron and proton. And
it saves, I would say, billions of dollars of computer effort. You don't need to use all the egghead stuff anymore. Yes. Quantum computers are nice for encryption and security and all that, but the beauty of the quantum entanglement is it makes it so that the solution is this geometric solution. And that's where Liz came in with the arc.
Yes.
When you say, I want to balance the proton and the electron, then that arc is what says the solution must be these three magic numbers.
Yeah.
And therefore, the solution is geometric.
And that's where...
The quantum jewel of physics, that that quantum jewel, it was in Wired magazine, where the colored little, you can do 500 pages of Einstein or Feynman's diagrams, Feynman's QED diagrams, which I know how to do that too. You can take 500 pages of Feynman diagrams and reduce them to like 1 page with this new technique, and everybody knows that. Okay. Now the problem is,
well, it's sort of, if I may say, it's sort of like the E8 Surfer Dude solution to unified particle physics, which the E8 we know is based on golden ratio, which, it's one geometry that accounts for all. But the two beautiful things that were said, and we discussed this, about the ratio between the Schwarzschild or muonic hydrogen, Schwarzschild proton or muonic hydrogen, versus the conventional proton radius, was that, as Nassim explains, it's like you took the balloon out of the ambient water, and so it expands, but if you put it back in,
Yeah.
and the nature of that compression was equivalent to...
Well, that's Dan. That's partially right. That's when you're talking about proton. The same effect probably happens because the electron is not a particle, and the muon is just a much more energetic electron, but it's got to be somewhat stable.
It's unpacked, as it were, perhaps. But the thing that established the geometry of the arc that links the electron to the proton is, which is the non-destructive perfected collapse, which we now say is phase conjugate, is when Nassim said to me in Paris that by Penrose tiling the Planck length on the surface of the Schwarzschild proton, that solution, that geometry, which is sort of a Fullerene geometric golden ratio implosive collapse, that then predicts the ratio to the conventional proton, which is, say, again, phase conjugate non-destructive collapse or non-destructive compression. So
yeah, right. So all those key ratios. So I just got the three numbers the other day, and I knew that the next thing is going to be some numerology of those three numbers. You guys are already way ahead of me. I wanted to go check it myself and make sure you're right. I haven't got there yet.
But
but I trust that it's right if you're working from Nassim's solutions. But I still have to check because the way your stuff is perfectly balanced, I think it's right, but I still need to check.
But making the point, though, that basically when you now use Nassim's radius of the proton, you then come up with a correct number for the ratio of the proton to the electron mass, which then gives evidence that Nassim's mathematics, which also implies golden ratio, is correct. And then further than that provides evidence to a phase conjugate solution, which you have now plugged into the Schrodinger wave equations. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And you can see that this solves simultaneously the Schrodinger's equation for the proton and electron at the same time. That's why you get a phase conjugate thing and solve those magic three numbers. Mm-hmm. That's why I sat and waited, because I thought, if I go tell anyone, they're not going to, someone will easily take it off of me, obviously, right? Because I could have talked to you or anyone else. And say, oh, nice, Mark. Who are you? Goodbye.
No, but we're giving you credit. Yeah. It's beautiful, and it is established that you.
But that's why a priori I only told one friend,
but
and folded it up and put it away. Because if I would have published it, thank you, Mark. The crazy man in the corner saying, "Hey, I did that." So I had thought about this ahead of time. I'm sorry that it took so many years to help you guys out. But I was busy.
It's beautiful that then you have a phase conjugate solution, not just to Schrodinger, but now we know that phase conjugate negentropy is the solution to problems in many other fields, as you were saying.
Right, and it unifies all the main coefficients of mainstream physics: capital G, the speed of light, the fine constant, which I believe has relative permittivity, the magnetic permittivity, the mu naught, epsilon naught. It's got everything in there. It relates. So this is the foundation of quantum gravity. If you didn't realize, I mean, you probably realize better than I do.
Exactly, and so then.
Foundation quantum gravity.
Beautiful. And would you then agree that if golden ratio is the wave solution to phase conjugation, and you're showing that phase conjugation is the solution to these fundamental constants, then if in fact the geometry that golden ratio sets up in 3D is quite literally the only perfect three-dimensional fractal in the sense it is self-similarity optimized, so this is documentation of the fractal nature of space and time, effectively.
Oh, yeah. Space and time both have to be quantized. Before, when I did the quantum mechanics, we just quantized momentum.
Well, but I mean, before we knew that space and time were quantized by Planck, but length and time. But now we know much more, that they're further quantized by Planck length and time precisely times exponents of golden ratio as phase conjugation. And that's what a three-dimensional fractal is. So that's the final or the most beautiful description of precisely what it is to say that space and time are quantized fractally.
Yeah, and Dan, before I can make complete statements like that, I do have to check, because I think your math wouldn't have worked out if you weren't doing the right thing. I haven't finished the general solution. I think what you have is exactly right, because it makes perfect sense. You just haven't finished those next steps.
Yeah, I mean, the math that I did is easily tested. It was that the Planck length times exact multiples of golden ratio, integer exponents, produced exactly 3 radii of hydrogen, and then I further showed that Planck time exponents, golden ratio again, integer exponents, produced exactly the 2 frequencies of photosynthesis.
Right.
Very easily tested.
Good.
So,
and that's what I haven't done yet.
No,
I do trust your
that's
work.
That's been verified.
Right. So if that's verified, this is the proof, the mathematical proof that what you have is correct. It's rooted in the Sims. Nassim has the theory of everything, by the way, if you didn't know. All this does is prove Nassim's theory of everything. From Nassim's theory of everything comes all fields.
But this is the first.
What you're doing, because this is not a theory of everything without Nassim. This is the way Einstein's field equations work. But that is the theory of everything with the right geometry, which is the sacred geometry. You know, this thing, as Nassim explains, and out of that comes all of your stuff. Well, and the electric universe too, by the way.
Well, yes, but this is the first time that my explanation for why gravity exists and why golden ratio is the cause of gravity as the cause of phase conjugation, because obviously the phase velocities add and multiply recursively constructively in golden ratio compression.
Right.
And that turns.
That's it. So you're making my job a lot easier.
Well, what we're saying is, so
when I say yes, I only say yes when I mean it. So I'm pretty sure your stuff's right. I just have to check it. But so I'm an integrated circuit designer. I have to meet ppm.
But I would say that for all that we admire Nassim, and I do, and I'm grateful particularly for his work on golden ratio and black holes, I'm the first one to answer how it is that golden ratio is the cause of gravity.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, because I was wanting to find out how to connect your work and Nassim's work to the mainstream, and this is how to do it.
So what we have effectively is that golden ratio phase conjugation is the cause of gravity, which is effectively to say that fractality in wave mechanics is the cause of gravity. That's what we're pointing at.
Yeah. It's got to be something like that, because it's got to be really balanced. Oh, and you do realize, based on Nassim's analysis of this stuff, as soon as you know Nassim's stuff and yours, the gravity stuff is more than just, hey, there's a lot you can do now.
and this eliminates the need for the concept of black holes. The concept of dark matter, and eliminates the need for the concept of the Higgs boson, effectively, which is a great shakeup for physics. And I think in the conversation we wanted to acknowledge your wife, who is something of a shaman herself, Liz, right?
Yeah, Liz. She's Liz Starwalker. So she's not ready to be on the air yet. I wasn't quite ready either.
She's the amazing physicist. But I just want
to wave and say hi, Liz. From way back.
Blessings, Liz.
Yeah, she's the one with the serious concepts. I'm the one with the math, the mainstream math, and the mainstream concepts. So her really understanding nature enabled me to use what I learned in college in the mainstream to solve this problem. If I would have known, I knew that the Higgs are saying that's about the mass, and even Peter Higgs is like having a drink and he doesn't even know what it's about. But when you ask a simple question, what is the equation for the mass of matter? You use Schrodinger's wave equation, solve it wholly. It falls right out. When you ratio, by the way, I'm an analog designer. I ratio things for a living. Notice the key thing is the ratio of the proton mass to electron mass. I've been wanting to solve this problem for over 20 years.
And conjugation in Schrodinger actually leads to result. One other thing I wanted to say about Liz was that she has shamanic training, effectively.
She's from an ashram in Brazil, 6 years in an ashram.
So I think we need to have more conversations about this. It's beautiful. And
Liz will be at the 5D event that you'll be speaking at. She's going to be speaking about, as a contactee, she'll be speaking.
In Los Angeles. I look forward to that, Liz.
That's interesting. Speaking as a contactee.
So I just wanted to thank you so much, and let's continue this discussion when we do the further analysis. And
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, this is just the beginning of it because I'm going to catch up with you guys, and then it spawns all the different fields, as you know.
which includes phase conjugate negentropy in healing plasmas and other things.
Right, right. And if you listen to Nassim's class, it's the best deal out there. Anybody that graduates from Nassim's class can take the mainstream physicists back to school, the professors back to school, the newscasters like Bill O'Reilly, all those guys that were hammering Insane Clown Posse, they're going to have to apologize to Insane Clown Posse because their lyrics, those fucking scientists are lying or whatever he's saying. That was French there. I don't even know the guy's name, but they're telling the truth, and they're getting hammered on my favorite radio. Well, it used to be my favorite TV station.
And now we can add to that the actual cause of gravity, which is fractality.
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah.
Which is
Well,
beautiful.
when you understand Nassim's work, there's three fundamental things that it brings: is gravitational control, infinitely available energy, and matter creation. All three of those things includes what you're doing: consciousness and space memory, all that stuff.
And what
this is the first theory of everything, by the way.
And that's what Keshe is doing, although he can't explain the phase conjugate. But you rotate a conjugator, you create propulsion, you create energy, you can actually precipitate living tissue. So lots of exciting things to come here. So thank you very much. We will continue this. Let's consider this a series.
Right. Yeah, okay. I'll talk to you either tomorrow or soon.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.